Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Certified Educator Program's second week of live sessions, starting with Getting Started with CK12 Adaptive Practice and Assignments. I'm Katie, one of the CEP Program Managers, and my colleague Lindsay and I will be running today's webinar.
We are thrilled to have so many participants from all around the world joining us for our second week of the live sessions for the Certified Educator Program. Since so many of you are new to the program, because a lot of people are just getting started the second week, we are going to take just a few minutes here at the beginning to do some program reminders. For those of you who are joining us for the second week, we appreciate your patience while we walk through a few logistics. So if you are looking to join the ranks of CK12 certified educators, here's how you will do it. You need to watch 2 mandatory on-demand sessions. The first on-demand session, which was our CK12 Certified Educator Program and CK12 Overview, was put on our Google Classroom on Sunday, July 1st. If you have not had a chance to watch those sessions yet, we hope that you're going to make it a priority since it sets you up for success and should help answer any questions you have about the Certified Educator Program and navigating CK12. The second on-demand session is called Beyond the CK12 Certified Educator Program, and it will be available at the conclusion of this week. And you will have until July 31st to watch it. The whole program will end by July 31st. You guys will have everything turned in, and we'll start issuing certificates in August. So after you do the first on-demand session, we're hoping you attend at least 5 live sessions like the one that you guys are on right now. We do have a variety of times offered and content covered, but since this is the second week, if you're trying to get all 5 in right now, check your registration and make sure that you're attending 5 live sessions that count towards certification. Next, you'll need to complete the accompanying assignments that go with all sessions. You'll find these in the Google Classroom. We'll also send you links toward the end of each webinar. And then lastly, you'll complete a final form to request your certification. And then you'll be CK12 certified. So Google is a partner of the CK12 Foundation, and we're using a Google Class to organize all of the materials and assignments for this program. You should have received several emails from us about accessing our Google Class, but some of you have just signed up within the last couple of days, so this may be a new email that you received. If you have not received emails, we have had some users report to us that their emails have hit their spam folder. So please check there and make sure that you're getting emails from the CK12 Foundation. Your email has a join code that you need to access the class. So if you have not yet joined, we hope you'll be able to soon. Because like I said, this is where you'll find our first on-demand session that includes 5 short videos to get you started with CK12. And you'll need to watch those and complete the matching assignments. And then also all of the program information is nicely housed in Google Classroom for you to access. At the end of today's webinar, we'll stay on and answer any questions you guys might have regarding Google Classroom. But right now, we want to get started with today's topic of adaptive practice and assignments. We have created a resource page for each of our sessions this summer. You can find those pages in the Google Class. And we're also going to put the link to today's resource in the chat window right now. You're welcome to print these resource pages before a session begins if it helps you to follow along. And of course, you can use it after as a reference for when you are working on the assignment or using adaptive practice during the school year.
So we hope you'll find these resource pages to be a great addition to the program this year. And as Lindsay said, we're starting off, a bunch of you guys are new, so I want to make sure everyone is getting comfortable with the Zoom webinar platform. You should see 2 different options on your Zoom screen. One is for Q&A and one for chat. During today's presentation, whenever you have a question for us, the CK12 team, about CK12 or the program, please post it in the Q&A window. That helps us track which questions we've answered and make sure we get to all of the questions you guys have asked. The chat window is a place for a community conversation. We'd love for you to continue to introduce yourselves. If you're an educator, feel free to share where you live and the subject you teach. Just make sure in the chat window that you are sending any general posts to all panelists and attendees, and not just CK12 or the panelists. Also, while we don't anticipate any technical issues during our broadcast, if you are having any trouble with your video or your sound, please let us know in Q&A or the chat window. Now let's get started with today's content. In this webinar, we'll be covering the following topics: CK12's adaptive practice system. This is an intelligent system with over 150,000 questions that adapts to students by challenging them with harder questions or recommending resources. We'll go through CK12 Classes. If you use a learning management system such as Google Classroom, Schoology, or Canvas, you don't need to also create a CK12 class. But if you're not using one and you want to see student progress and host discussions, then this is a great option for you because you can share content within there and make assignments and see progress. And then finally, we'll be talking about assignments and student progress. So assigning practice and other modalities either to your CK12 class or another learning management system, and then including answers, levels, and time spent in those reports that you would see through CK12 classes especially. So our main goal is that by the end of this session, you understand how our adaptive practice system works, you can assign practice and other modalities to your classes, and you can monitor student progress. I'd like to launch a poll right now to find out a little bit more about your experience with adaptive practice and various class management systems. So the first question here says, how familiar are you with the CK12 adaptive practice tool? You're new to CK12's adaptive practice, you use it occasionally, you use it frequently, or you've customized it as a quiz. And that's followed by a second question that says, which do you use to assign CK12 resources? Are you using or planning to use CK12 classes? Do you use a learning management system such as Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, or a different learning management system? Or you're not sure what you're currently using or plan to use down the road? From there, you can choose multiple options as you go through. So feel free to select the ones that are appropriate for you or your school or district. And I'm going to pause for a few seconds to let you finish answering this poll. So we're about 80% of you guys have answered. I'll give you another few seconds to kind of wrap up those answer choices, and then we'll share those results. Okay, I think with that, we're going to end that poll and share those results. So as you guys can see, many of you are new to adaptive practice. It actually looks like, I'm sorry, I had the wrong question there that we were asking about. So this one is asking about adaptive practice, quizzes, videos, so kind of those different modalities that you guys are working off of. And then we'll see as we go through, we'll be talking about those different modalities. It looks like a number of you guys have assigned some of them so far, but this is definitely the right place for you guys if you are new. And if you've used it frequently, hopefully we'll get to some added bonus pieces that you might understand and learn to incorporate into your class.
All right, thank you, Katie. This is going to be helpful as we work our way through the webinar. But before we actually get into the core content, let's talk about what you'll be able to do by the end of this webinar. You will be able to find appropriate practice for various concepts, assign practice, reads, interactives, and other modalities to your classes, create a new CK12 class and make changes to existing classes, find detailed per question feedback on students, and quickly see the number of students in a class that have completed an assignment. For those of you who will be taking customizing CK12 adaptive practice and assignments, here are the types of things we're going to cover in that more advanced session. That's where we'll cover customizing practice into quizzes, settings for quizzes, adding concepts to a quiz, selecting and reordering questions in a quiz, creating new questions, using CK12's math editor, creating multi-concept assignments, and student reports to multi-part assignments and quizzes. If you're wanting additional help with any of these skills right now, or with CK12 integration with various learning management systems such as Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, and Edmodo, please be aware that this is a getting started webinar focused on the basics and on CK12 classes. and we'll prioritize questions related to the basics during the webinar. Don't worry though, we're going to stay on as always to address any complex customizing questions that need a live demonstration at the end of our presentation.
So with that, let's move into adaptive practice. What is adaptive practice? CK12's adaptive practice system is a digital tool designed to meet students at their current level of understanding and help them master the next step for any concept. Because of that, our system will bump students up to available harder questions if they are successfully answering, or it will make recommendations, such as text to read, a video to watch, or an interactive to work with, if students find the current level too challenging. Why you should use it. CK12 has over 150,000 questions, primarily math, science, and a little bit of spelling, that with a variety of question types in there. Plus, when students submit their work that you've assigned, you as the teacher can see info such as the time they spent, their streak, and the level of questions. And where can you find it? You can find adaptive practice on the CK12 website through any concept or through the adaptive practice icon. There's also a free CK12 app available for all smartphones and tablets. This tool and the matching app provide the ability for students to practice at their own pace on any electronic device, whether in school, at home, on a bus, or on the way to a game.
So like Katie just said, there are several different ways to access adaptive practice on our site, and I'm going to show you various ways to do that in a live walkthrough in just a minute. But one easy shortcut is to simply go to www.ck12.org/practice. Our adaptive practice system is set up to challenge students to answer 10 questions correctly. Students will see this at the top of their practice. Get in the game, get 10 answers to complete your practice goal. Our system meets students where they are with 3 levels of questions, easy, medium, and hard. The system will match the student's level and will gradually increase or decrease difficulty depending on how students are performing. This means a student who is struggling may hit a goal of 10 correct with all easy questions, and a student who is more advanced would have more of a mix of levels. For teachers, this ensures that each student is progressively and appropriately challenged while maintaining a clear record of each student's level of understanding. Having questions that adapt to students' needs is awesome, but CK12 takes this to the next level by making content recommendations in the moment. If a student is struggling, CK12 will intervene by recommending helpful resources like reads and videos. This is really the magic to the system. If you're teaching 5 classes a day with 30 students in each class, it's very difficult to differentiate for all students in the moment. But our system's going to do the heavy lifting for you, and it ensures that students are being appropriately challenged and supported. So when you select practice for any concept, in this case adding whole numbers, you will see this main screen here. When logged in with a teacher account, one of the first things you will see at the top is the option to assign this to your class. Just keep that button in mind because it's going to be relevant when we start talking about assignments. To the far right, you'll see the option to download practice as a worksheet. You can get this practice as a PDF. To the far right, the icon that's in the middle that says Customize, we're going to be talking about that button in more detail in the session Customizing CK12 Adaptive Practice and Assignments. You will also always get a time estimate for how long our system thinks it will take the student to answer 10 questions correctly. And then at the bottom in the Prepare Before You Practice section, notice how our intelligent system gives you an idea of how students perform on this practice after viewing this resource. Then, of course, there's the big orange button to start practicing. After you press that big orange button, this is the type of screen that you're going to see when students go into practice. So I've got some numbers here to kind of diagram it for you. The first thing up at the top, the navigation menu returns to the previous screen and allows users to submit their work. Or you can press Stop for Now in the upper right-hand corner. Next, you'll see a progress bar that displays the number of questions answered correctly. You can see that our system has already set the goal of 10. This is a system requirement. It cannot be changed by the teacher or the student. They are always trying to get 10 questions correct. You will see the battery charger that will increase and decrease based on the student's streak. Sometimes it'll even have a number there. It'll say like 3 times or 4 times if the student is getting several correct in a row. It will turn red and decrease if the student has missed several in a row. We have a lot of different types of questions that appear in practice. They include multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, and select all that apply. We also have hints available at the bottom left during practice for most of our concepts. So there are 2 ways to scroll through hints here. We've got the Got It button that allows users to cycle through hints, or the arrow button. Let's see, number 7 on the diagram here. The arrow button also allows users to cycle through various hints that we provide. And then we have a scratch pad. It's available for all questions if students need to use their mouse or a stylus or something and write on the screen to solve a problem. And then lastly, that Improve This Question button gives users a chance to report an issue. If they find something, they've got a question about one of our questions or an answer to a practice problem, they can press this and report it to the CK12 staff. All right, so let's put this all together here. I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a second to get to CK12.org. All right, I think we're there. Let me decrease this a little bit. Okay. So I told you earlier that you could access practice by going to ck12.org/practice, but I also want to show you a couple of different ways to do that from the homepage. Just to make sure everybody's getting comfortable with ck12.org, you can press our logo to at any time be taken back to this homepage. You've got some options here of dashboard. I'm going to be showing you classes in a minute. We'll look at our library. But down here is where you can see all subjects. So I could go through a branch and I could get to a concept and ultimately arrive at practice through these options here. But I'm going to go up to the search bar and say I am teaching geometry and I want to look for a concept like the midpoint formula. So when I start typing, you can see that it's going to come up with some options for me here. And we love for people to do this. You know, students are so used to just going to a Google search bar and typing for a math or science concept in a Google search bar, and who knows what's going to pop up, right? But if you can get your students comfortable with using the CK12 search bar, they're going to get curated, vetted content that's hopefully going to get them answers to the questions that they're looking for much quicker than just a simple Google search. My search results, it returned a lot. I've got 3,000 some search results for midpoint formula, because that's every instance it appears in one of our resources. I could filter by grade. I could filter by subject. I find it most useful to search through different categories. If I know I'm looking for a video or a real world activity or a flex book, I can narrow down my search there. But right now, this box that we have highlighted at the top that says concept, this is what I want. I'm going to click on the midpoint formula and it's going to take us to what we call a CK12 concept page. And on this concept page, you can see that we have neatly organized all of the resources we have on the midpoint formula. So we have a read that's like a lesson, and we even have a couple more reads here. We've got interactive Plix. We have a lot of videos. We have this one and then 10 more videos. We have some class activities. We have practices, which is what I'm actually looking for here, and we've got a real world activity. So from the concept page, I'm able to arrive at practice. And so when I click on midpoint formula, this is one way to get to the practice here. I can preview the questions, and then notice that I also have this orange assign to class option on the side. That's going to give me the options to assign it to a CK12 class that I create, or an option to assign it to my Google Classroom. Okay, and we'll look at that more when we go to classes and assignments. If I'm gonna press the CK12 logo to get back to the home page. Another way to locate practice is to scroll down, and we have these explore buttons. I really like these because it's easy access to our simulation, our Plix, and then here's adaptive practice. So if I want to just explore adaptive practice, this shows all of the subjects that we have adaptive practice for. Notice that we have some grades 1 through 5 math, all of these basic middle school math concepts, and then science, and we even have some spelling questions that are adaptive practice. I'm going to go into physics, and I want to show you that if I go to motions in 2 dimensions, I want to show you that it's easy to see what practice I've already attempted. Over here on the far right, you see 20%, 50%, 70%. That means that I've started this practice, but I haven't finished it. Because remember, my goal is to get 10 correct. And so if I had achieved my 10 correct out of 10, we would be seeing 100%. But on this first one, 20% means I've only answered 2 questions correct. Projectile motion, I've only answered 5 questions correctly. That's why it's showing 50%, 70%. I can always go back at any time and continue to practice. This is a practice tool. We want students to do it often. We want them to achieve their goal, and they can even do more than 10 questions correct, and you would see that reflected in a percentage. But let me go back out here. Let me go to a different, let me go to life science. And let's see what's happening with plants. Let's go to seed plants. So this is a practice that I haven't done yet. We can see that I've got, you know, the time estimate of it thinks it's going to take me about 5 minutes to get 10 questions correct. Students won't see this assigned to class or download worksheet. That's just a teacher account. I've got some recommendations, and then I'm going to start practicing. Okay, so this is the window that I showed you earlier. I've got a select all that applies question. So I'm going to be a not great student here and just select 1. Notice that it tells me that I only got 1 out of 2 correct. We've got a positive message here, even when I miss it, that says mistakes motivate, try again. And I'm going to move on to the next question. I missed that one. Mistakes prove you are trying. Here's a fill in the blank question. Plot spoiler, I'm going to miss this one. So every mistake is an opportunity. I think I'm going to miss this one too. So I've just missed 4 questions in a row. My battery charger is going down. And then this is the part that I wanted to show you. This is the really amazing part of our adaptive practice system, that it identifies when a student is struggling, you know, just missed several in a row, and it has intervened with some recommendations. It's saying, hey, why don't you take a second and read about seed plants? Why don't you watch this video? Why don't you do this real world activity? And these are activities that students can access and then continue on with their practice when they're more prepared. Of course, for the students who want to ignore that suggestion, there is an option to return to practice, and they can keep going from there. Notice that I can get a hint, and I can click got it. The scratch pad might be more relevant for math, but this is basically what you get. You get a little pencil that you can use on the scratch pad. We've got this improve this question. And so I'm not doing so hot on this adaptive practice. When I stop the practice, I haven't turned it in yet, so I'm not going to get any great analytics here, but I'm going to show you this later on for real practice. But essentially, I have not answered any correct. I have no best streak. I've spent 2 minutes on it. And if I scroll down, you can see that it served up 5 questions total. It asked me 3 easy questions, a medium, and a hard question, and I didn't do very well on any of those. And I can scroll down and I can see exactly what I got correct and what I missed. Both the student and the teacher are able to see a report like this that has these analytics. And for teachers, this time spent is gold, right? You can tell 2 students who ended up getting the same amount of questions correct. How long did each student spend on that? Was it challenging enough? Was it too challenging? What was their streak? Were they able to get 10 questions correct all in a row? Were they only able to get a few questions correct in a row? That gives you some analytics on that practice. So we're going to talk more about making assignments here in a second, but why don't I check in? Katie's been keeping an eye on the Q&A window, so we're going to see what questions we can answer for you guys.
Thanks, Lindsay. One of the biggest questions that we're getting is kind of the difference between a CK12's adaptive practice and what we call a quiz. And then also this kind of question of like, is there a middle ground? Like, can I customize some pieces and pick parts and still have it be adaptive? So maybe you could address those kind of in one answer.
Sure. So our adaptive practice does what I just showed you. It will, start off with some medium level questions for students, and then if they're doing well, it's going to get more advanced. If they're doing poorly, it's going to get easier, and it's going to adapt to their needs. The difference with a quiz is you are able to turn any of our adaptive practice questions into a quiz. It kind of pulls from the same bank of questions. And this is an advanced concept that's going to be covered thoroughly in our more advanced webinar. But when you turn something into a quiz, while it's still delivered digitally to the students, they'll see the questions, in this multiple choice, fill in the blank, true, false format, like our adaptive practice questions. Our system will no longer adapt. You are serving up these same questions to students. So if you've selected 20 questions to make a quiz, they're going to be answering those 20 questions. It's not going to adjust and personalize the experience. There isn't an intelligence underneath that is, running analytics on the student. So you lose the adaptivity. As far as a middle ground goes, one request that we've received as we've met with teachers this year is to, be able to look at our adaptive practice questions for a concept, but then have some selection of choose a subset of those questions. And unfortunately, that's not available yet. That's not a capability of our system at this moment. It is one of the top requests that we get, so we've reported that to our developers, and we would love to see that kind of middle ground developed. But right now, your options is to use our adaptive practice as is for a concept, or to customize it into a quiz, which Katie's going to show you in the customizing adaptive practice more advanced session later in the week.
Lindsay, we also have a couple of questions regarding the view. People were asking, are you in a teacher view, a student view? And then how do I see the student view? Maybe you could just kind of talk about that this is the same view for the most part.
Yeah, so at the home page here, I'm in a Jumpstart demo account, which is a teacher demo account. I selected that when I signed up for the site. I have a button over here that allows me to switch to a student version. Our two views are very similar. We customize the landing page a bit for students. They see students in the testimonials. They don't see the standards browser that teachers see. They also see a study guides icon here instead of a schools icon on the teacher page, because we try to customize the page for what people are trying to access. So as a teacher, you get more information about standards, and then you also see a schools page. For the most part, though, our site is designed as a practice site, as a learning tool. So students have access to most of the resources that teachers do. When you're in adaptive practice specifically, teachers have the ability to assign and to download worksheets that you don't see when you're in a student account, but the reports are the same. After a student completes practice, they're able to see the same analytics in a report that the teacher would be able to see. I hope that helped clarify.
Thanks. And then we have a couple just like general questions that I'm going to answer. Do we have a questions bank in CK12? Lindsay mentioned we have over 150,000 questions for primarily math and science with some spelling. So those are definitely in there and accessible for you both to use in adaptive practice or to use in customized quizzes. We had some questions about the Scratchpad. Is input included with the user report the teacher can see later? The answer is no. That's just a kind of scratch paper for the student to work on. If you want them to record that, they could screenshot that work at any point in time and kind of go from there. And then so she's just pulling up that scratch pad there. We had one teacher ask how you get to the screen where you can view your progress. So maybe you could go back to that practice icon and show them that one thing. And then maybe we'll continue to answer questions in the Q&A, but we'll jump back into some content because we'll get to some of those as we work our way through.
So this is what a report would look like when it's popped up at the end, was the question about, let's see. So when I showed you the percentages earlier, if I go to view all practice, I think this was the question, right? So I haven't done any practice on these particular concepts because it would tell me in the far right. I know that in motion in 2 dimensions, this is what I showed you earlier, where I can see that I've started these practice concepts, but I haven't finished. So students and teachers would be able to see progress through this adaptive practice window here.
Great. Can you just show how to get to that from the homepage via the icon?
Yeah. So a couple of ways. One easy way down here is with this adaptive practice under Explore option. It takes us to this browse page. So on any subject that I would click on, I would be able to see what I've started. Like in Foundations of Life, I started Characteristics of Life, but I didn't actually get any questions correct yet.
Thanks, Lindsay. I know we have some open questions. We're working our way through questions and the Q&A, and we'll keep getting back to them. Some of them have to do with classes and assignments, so I think we're going to move forward with that part, and hopefully that will answer some of your questions. So let me go ahead and pull this up. And before we start that, we want to just talk about how one of our certified educators from last year, from 2017, Nathaniel Eugene, used adaptive practice in really cool, innovative ways with his middle school math students. So hopefully this just gives you kind of a wrap up of the practice piece before we move into classes.
There are 3 big reasons that I really want them to be on CK12. The first thing I think is what it does, it allows them to improve, it allows them to extend the lesson that I'm teaching, so they could maybe build on skills that I can't cover in the classroom. And sometimes when they come to me, they have a lot of learning gaps. CK12 allows them to focus on those skills that I can't touch on class.
So does 80 go into 1,000?
The question they're working on actually is slightly above grade level, but they trying to challenge themselves. So they're probably going to be for just a little while trying to figure it out. But that's one of the reasons I use it, so that our slightly higher kids could get an extra challenge. Another thing is it makes them very competitive, very motivated, and they tend to do better on standardized testing when they are that motivated. When you send kids to the board, you actually get to see them struggle. You see things that you really wouldn't notice if you were the one up front. So what I try to do is try to turn the class over to them so that it becomes more student-centered as opposed to just teacher-centered.
Plus 20 minus 36.
And then you have, well, what's 20 minus 36? Can you simplify 20 minus 36? By them being able to access the Plix activities, the Flex books, the videos, they choose the styles that they want to learn in.
I think CK12 is very beneficial to me because when I don't understand a certain concept in the classroom, I usually just go look on CK12 and he puts the assignment up there so like he can make us understand, and the first thing he always tells us to do is watch the videos and like use the reading to try to help us, and that really helped me out learning like polynomials, how to multiply them, factoring them.
It makes them more independent of me, and for me it's more than just standardized testing. It's making them lifelong learners, independent learners, so they can actually go ahead of me and touch on topics that I haven't even covered yet, because they have that confidence that I can learn it in the way that I want to learn it.
So hopefully that just gave you a little introduction of a different way that you might be able to use practice in your classes. And with that, let's talk about classes. So there are many different ways to learn on CK12, and some of you have been asking how to see student progress or assign work. CK12 Classes is one way to do that. And I want to preface this by saying if you are using a learning management system such as Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, or something else that we are fully integrated with, you do not need to, and I would recommend that you do not create a separate CK12 class. So a lot of the kind of general ideas that are coming up in here will be useful, but just know that distinction, that this is for anyone that doesn't have a place to assign content from CK12 and wants to go from there. So what are classes? They used to be called groups on CK12. We've renamed them classes as we streamline them. And they enable educators to share resources, host group discussions, make assignments, and see student reports. So this is where you would see that student progress for anything you have assigned. Why should you use it? Well, if you set up a class, you can have a class discussion, you can share those modalities, and then most importantly, that tracking progress and kind of encouraging students to do work is super helpful. And you can create and access CK12 classes through your dashboard or the class icon at the top of any CK12 page. Kind of for assignments and those pieces, you're going to want to do that from a main CK12.org webpage.
Okay. Sorry, just a second. I'm going to steal the screen here, Katie. It's getting lost in our Q&A. We've got a lot of great questions from folks. Please keep the questions coming into the Q&A window. I'm going to steal back the screen here, and I want to show you what classes look like on CK12. So let's go back to our window. And I'm going to go back from the home page just so you guys get used to doing things from the home page. So again, I'm logged in as a teacher. And so up at the top here on my menu options, one of them says classes. We used to call this tab groups. So right now they've got groups in parentheses just to remind you. But I'm going to go into my classes area. And when you first log in, you might get a pop-up tutorial kind of walkthrough from CK12 that will, kind of take you step by step through this process. I've already been on here several times, so I don't get any kind of a tutorial walkthrough. But I can look at this, and if I wanted to look at content type suggestions, notice that it takes me to my dashboard. That's where I can see my recently viewed concepts and things that are trending on CK12, some suggested videos and clicks. But when I want to view my classes, that's when the tab flips over to classes here. So currently I have 7 classes and only 14 members of those classes. So I haven't really set this up for, a school year large classes. We just have some demo content in here. But if you wanted to get started setting up a class, you can press this teal button with the plus symbol, and you've got the option to create a class or to join a class. So let's go ahead and create a class together. It says start a class to share resources, assign practice, and track progress. So if you were going to be, if you're a high school teacher and you have those 5 periods during the class day, one way that you might want to start typing your title, I'm gonna ignore the suggestion of Math Geeks Unite, and instead I'm gonna do something like, let's see, let's do biology, hour 7. Oh, 7th hour biology, that would be rough. I can select my subject here, biology, and then I can select what kind of theme I want to display for my class. I can also add in an optional description if I would like. And when I create the class, I now see it here in my classes at the top, and it's just waiting for me to add some students. Something that you guys need to wrap your head around here is that when you're using CK12 classes, again, this is different from Google Classroom or Schoology or Canvas. When you're using CK12 classes, your management for reports and assignments, you cannot make different assignments within the same group. So my biology hour 7, they're all going to get the same assignment. I can't choose that only half of them get an assignment and the other half of them get a different assignment. So if you're in a situation, like I was working with a homeschool parent last week who had 5 children, and she was setting up a different class for each child because each child was going to get a different assignment. Sometimes, like within my biology hour 7, if I had sort of 2 different groups that I'd identified as maybe a more advanced group and some, a more just kind of your average group, I wouldn't want to give them labels, but I could assign them colors or something. I could say that this is the green group and this is the red group. And I could have those set up as separate classes and make separate assignments that way. That's one way that you could differentiate. But anyway, if I were to add students, I have a lot of different ways to do this. We want you to do whatever is easiest for you. One way is to invite students by email. So if your students, if you have all of their email addresses, you can email them, or there's also a join code here that you could give to your students and have them join the class. That's one option. Another option, if your students don't have an email, you can set your students up on CK12. You can add a first name, last name is optional. You could use the last initial if you want, a unique username, and a password. So you could start them on CK12. Another option is to find existing students. If you were pulling from a same group of students who you'd already worked with in CK12 before, you could pull them up that way. And then there's also an upload class roster option. This is where CK12 has to assist you, where if you fill out a spreadsheet in this format and send it to CK12, we can help bulk upload your students for you. So those are different ways to add students to your roster. I'm going to go back to classes, and we've kind of pre-populated some content in our CEP 2018 grades area just to show you some of these different options. When you actually have students in here, you're going to see kind of on your home browser what's going on. If I click on assignments over here on the left, it's going to show me what I have assigned through CK12 class. So I assigned on tomorrow, actually, July 17th. I've got 2 practices and a quiz that are due. All these other things have upcoming assignments that are due. I can create more assignments. I can show more. This is my list of what I have assigned to students. Reports, we're going to show you more in depth here in a second. But essentially, this is pulled up. I've got my few students here. I can see that this was a real world activity. And so I can see that these students have at least opened and interacted with that real world activity. Here is our practice. And I could click on this and I could see that Kaylin has received 100% on her practice. Jumpstart student must have only gotten 5 out of 10 correct. They still have a little work to do on their practice. So I can look at quick analytics from the top upper bar that lists the assignments, or I could also select an individual student. So here it's going to show me that Kaylin, she turned in her RWA. Again, it's kind of a completion score on whether or not they opened and submitted that. I can see on practice that she got 100% on several of the practices. Here she only received 90% on this practice. She has not attempted the simulation yet. We have no score for her. So I can see analytics on an individual student basis as well. Q&A, this is a feature that you may love or you may decide that you want to turn it off. This is basically an open forum for students where they can post questions and they can answer questions. If you have the classroom climate where you like this opportunity, awesome. If you do not want to have a Q&A, you can turn it off in settings down here. So I'm going to jump down to settings. And this is where you have some controls. You'll see your class code. You can also view and add students from the settings option. We've got our class link here. You have some preferences and how you want students to be notified via email. If you want it to be instant, if you want it to be daily notifications. And then Q&A, the Q&A setting. You can turn off the Q&A option altogether. You can enable or disable students the opportunity to post anonymously. And then also when you're ready to delete classes and start for a new year, you've got the delete class option down here. Those are all under settings. And then the other 2 menu options here that you would see is shared resources. This is a place where as a teacher, I can share things. I could share other CK12 links. I could share videos. I could share whatever I would like. So if I didn't want to assign it, but I just wanted it there, for a student reference, that's a great place to do it with the shared resources. And then I can see the members of my class here as well. So why don't we check in again with Katie on what's happening in Q&A.
Great. So Lindsay, we just had a question about a couple different people are asking about Canvas, Schoology, Google Classroom, all of those pieces. Once again, if you are using a platform that is integrated with CK12, I would recommend that you assign your content within that platform or to that platform. You'll be able to see the full detailed reports for almost all of them right now. I think Schoology is the only one that only gives you the percentage scores, but Canvas and Classroom give you the full detailed reports that we'll be talking about shortly. But if you want to learn more about those, we are offering 2 breakout sessions this week, one on CK12 in Google Classroom, one on CK12 in Canvas or Schoology. If you can't make those sessions, you can already see the recordings of last week's offering in our CEP Google Class. So definitely check those out if you're using something like that. So just keep that in mind, that these classes are if you're using a platform that's not integrated with CK12 and you need to set up a way to assign content and see student progress. If you could maybe just click on so we had a student that was asking, or a teacher that was asking about how to add a class. And so if you want to show that, and then maybe also click on, so right there you should see create a class or join a class. If you're not seeing that option to create a class and you only see the join a class option, if you can go up to your name in the top right, so where it says right there, the Jumpstart demo, and click on settings. And then within here, if you scroll down just a little bit, you should see profile and click on change profile. And here it notes that this account is a teacher account. If you're not seeing the option to create a class, it's probably because you accidentally set up your account as a student account, or you made a separate account as a student account and you're trying to use that to create these resources. So just make sure that your account is set up as a teacher in order to be able to see the options for teachers, such as customization and assignments, and in this case, creating classes from there. So hopefully that answered that piece. And we have some questions. Can I use CK12 Classrooms for my after-school help group classes?
Of course, you can use CK12 Classes for anything. Like I said, you can set up a class with just 1 or 2 students, or you can set up a class for, for 25 or 30 students. So anything, again, we're hearing a lot about people using other learning management systems, but we have so many teachers who don't have access to those outside learning management systems, or who aren't in a large district who has a platform like that. So that's why it's so important to demonstrate to you that our platform can handle all of this. You can set up your classroom, you can add your students to it, and then start getting real reports through CK12.
Okay, I know we have some questions about assignments, so I think we're going to move into the last core part of this session and go from there so we can show you what those assignments look like. We talked about classes, and now we're in assignments. So what are assignments? So CK12 educators can assign practice, quizzes, reads, videos, sims, Plix interactives, and real-world applications. So all of our core modality types you can actually create assignments for students both within our platform and other integrated platforms. So why would you use it? The key feature is that if you assign that content, you can see student progress and you can tailor your teaching accordingly. And those assignments can be created and your reports accessed on CK12.org. So if you are creating assignments to a CK12 class, you do that on CK12 and you see progress there. If you're creating it for Google Classroom, you would make the assignment on CK12, but you would see your progress in Google Classroom. And for other learning management systems, you would do all of the assigning and progress tracking within that learning management system. So we know many of you are still exploring CK12 and getting a feel for the different resources. As a reminder, these are what we consider our assignable core modalities, or different ways for students to learn and practice. You can assign a read, which is our text sections within a book or read standalone reads. Videos, our Plix interactives. Simulations, adaptive practice or customized practice in what we call a CK12 quiz. And real-world applications. While all of our resources have a unique URL that you can always copy and paste, or you can embed our practice into another system using the green share plane or that embed code or different options. If you want to generate a report, you need to assign these modalities. I'm sharing this chart with you, but please don't be intimidated. It's included in the session resource page that you can reference at any time, but it gives you an idea of how things report in CK12 classes, or a preview of how they report in a learning management system such as Google Classroom. So our practice and quiz modalities, students can turn those in at any point in time, and the percent would be a percent out of 100 within our system, or if you chose a different score for that assignment, a percent of that chosen score. Students, for adaptive practice, that goal is 10 correct, and for a quiz, it would be the percent correct out of the total number of questions that you set for that quiz. Our other modality types are really learning and exploratory modality types. So we just give incomplete and complete scores. So in CK12, you'll see a check mark or no credit. In a learning management system, they would have a 0 or the full score that you've assigned for that assignment. For the text and video modalities, they can turn that in once they open it. For interactives, we actually force them to interact with those interactives or simulations just a little bit before they're allowed to actually turn that content in.
All right, so we're going to walk you through a series of screenshots here just to show you how you create these assignments. So right now you're looking at what we call a read. This is on the Val A, but this is the same if you were looking at a real world activity or a video. You can see that over on the left navigation bar, there is an option to assign to class. And again, when you press that, it's going to give you the option to assign to CK12 class or to assign to a Google Classroom. I also want to note that when you're in a read like this, up at the top, you're seeing practice. This is one other place that you can go and easily assign practice by pressing select. You'll have a drop-down option that will allow you to assign from this view as well. When you're using a Plix, up in the top bar, also using our orange coloring system here, you have an assign to class button for Plix. When you assign it out through CK12 or through Google Classroom, you'll receive a report back from students after they've actually interacted with the Plix and submitted it that way. This is the same for our simulations. Up at the top, we have the assign to class option up at the top of the sim. Okay, so let's talk about reports here for a second. When you, let's see, here's the next one. This is the screen that I showed you earlier, that across the top, you've got a list of what the assignments were that I made through CK12 classes. On the left side, we have students listed. The class is vertical, assignments are horizontal. You can see that it's organized by last name, or in this case, we just used a last initial for students, but you would probably have last names for your students. So when you get to an individual student report, I showed you this one earlier too. So you saw all these different features in this report, a list of what she has and has not completed. And then this is the page. If we went really granular into the student report, once again, they're 70% of the way to their practice goal. So that means they received, or they answered 7 questions correctly. The best streak here was 2. And 3 minutes were spent on answering this question. So the skill level is a bit of an algorithm. It's saying, probably has some room to improve, hasn't quite nailed the skill yet with only getting 7 correct and spending that amount of time and having that streak. I can also see how many easy, medium, and hard questions were answered. So if you scroll down on this report, again, the student sees this after they've completed the practice, and the teacher has access to this report always if you've assigned it through the class here. I can see the questions are labeled easy, medium, hard. I can see the correct answer and what the student answered. I can see the time and the date that this report was submitted. All right, so now you guys were talking about the student view earlier. So now you can see up in the right-hand corner, this is the Jumpstart student account, okay? So this is what a student sees when they go to their dashboard. They can see the latest assignments. So we kind of queue it up nicely for them of these are the things that the student has to do. If they flip over to the class activity tab, they see they might have multiple classes for CK12. Probably, your math department's using it, your science department's using it. So here's where they would see all of their class activity in one view here. And then there's a self-study option. Students might be working on their own, things that aren't assigned to them, so they can see their progress in that area of self-study. And then one thing we wanted to make sure you guys realize is that we have added a blue, or a teal bar here with the orange turn in button. Students do need to press the turn in button after completing an assignment. And that's how it gets turned in, gets submitted for you to see on your end, for you to get a report. So here is where it is at the top of a read. that looks similar when we do practice. You'll just see the Turnin button that students do need to press at the end of an assignment.
Thanks, Lindsay. So we had a couple questions about classes and assignments. Let's see if we can answer a few of these before we wrap up our core content. And as always, we'll stay on to answer some of those other ones. So some of the questions that came in had to do with sharing resources and asking questions. If you enable that Q&A feature within your classroom, so it's defaulted to be open, and as long as you don't kind of turn the Q&A off, then students will be able to ask questions within your class. In terms of sharing resources, classes are set up so that the resources shared are from the teacher of that class, in which case that way it's not cluttered with a bunch of random students sharing stuff that's not relevant potentially to that class. They could always put a title or a kind of information and a link text piece within that Q&A that would allow them to share pieces. And then we had a couple questions in terms of what's the minimum number of students in a class or the maximum number of students in a class. You could set up a class for individual students, so that's not a problem in CK12. So feel free to set up that way if you're teaching, in a small school or you're working with students that need very tailored questions and assignments. Feel free to set up a class for that. In terms of maximum, I have yet to have a teacher hit a max number, so I actually don't even know what that is in our system. I would say long before our system requires a maximum number or sets that cap, you're going to decide that you really should break your classes into different groups so that you can assign different work to different classes at different points in time. So maybe period 1 gets one class and period 2 gets a different class. And that way, when there's an assembly and they're now a day off, you can set due dates at different points in time. So whatever that maximum number is, I've never hit it or had a teacher hit it, so I would not worry about that piece there. Let's see if we maybe can bump back and maybe take one more question before we kind of do some wrap-up pieces here.
It looks like a couple people were looking for clarification on the Turnin button, and related, somebody was asking if students can do an assignment twice, like before class and after instruction.
Sure. So the Turnin button should show up for any work that a student was assigned. So as long as that modality was assigned to students, they should see that Turnin button. Once again, if you check that green chart that I showed you on that resource page, it tells you exactly when they would be able to see it. So if they're in a Plix, they actually can't see it until they start answering questions. If they're in a simulation, they have to start interacting with that simulation first. Most of the rest of them, you could turn it at any point in time. Note that your score, if there's a due date that you set for your assignment, students can turn in that practice as many times as they want up till that due date, and it will lock in their score up till that due date. If they haven't turned in any score at all before the due date and they completely forgot to do it, they have one shot to turn it in afterwards, but it gives them kind of a delayed, hey, that was late piece as they work their way through. So hopefully that clarifies a bit of those pieces. I think we're going to do kind of some core wrap up for this part, and then we'll stay on and answer any questions we haven't gotten to yet at the end of this. But let me take it from here. That was our little Q&A we were working on. One super helpful page for you is our CK12.org/tools and apps page. That includes information both about our practice app and other apps, as well as some learning management system integration pieces, so check that out. We want to talk to you about two different things. The live chats. This Friday, we're hosting chats. We had a lot of questions about kind of connecting with other educators. So if you want to join us for any of these, you can sign up in our Google Class. You can sign up using the email we sent out last Friday. And I believe Felix is going to post those direct registration links in the chat window. So feel free to copy those, and you can access them accordingly to join us for any of those. We also have this Wednesday a chance to talk to our founder, Nero Khosla. So those of you asking about when is CK12 going to do this, or why are you doing things this way, feel free to ask our founder that piece. You can register using the link in the classroom, or as Felix sends that out as well, or within the email we sent. So definitely join us for that if you have some kind of big where is CK12 going questions. If you have yet to join our Google Classroom, I know a lot of you, this is the beginning session for your kind of part in this program. You can use this join code to join your Google Class. If you're getting an error code message, it's probably because your school's blocked external classes. So you can have your tech department whitelist CK12 within Classroom, or you could use a personal email account to join that class and then just shoot jumpstart@ck12.org and email, and let us know what that is, and we will cross-reference it to your registration. This resource page can be found within the CEP Google Class, so definitely check that out. It has that short information, and as I said, on the back is that chart on when students can turn content in. And then for those of you that are looking for certification, you'll see our assignment within Google Classroom as well. That assignment, you can just click on the link to the form. Once you submit it and see the confirmation screen, you can mark that assignment as done within Google Classroom to track for yourself. You don't need to attach anything. We'll have a record of it on our end, so go ahead and do that. All assignments should be completed before the end of July, so make sure that as you're working your way through these sessions, you're doing the matching assignment as well. And then we have one feedback form for this whole program that we hope you'll use following our webinars. Please let us know what went well, what we can do better. This is not mandatory, but we do read and carefully consider all the comments that we receive as feedback. It's available in the Google Classroom under the feedback topic, and we can message that out as well. So I think with that, we're going to say thank you for joining us. Let me assure you that you'll continue to be supported by our team. We're happy to help in any way. You can shoot us an email at Jumpstart. Please let your social networks know about CK12 and your participation in this program using hashtag CK12 certified. And I think we're going to go back to answer some questions, but if you are all set and have no questions, we will see you again on a future webinar.
Okay, we're getting several questions about Google Classroom. So let's just knock out a few of those. People are asking about if you've used different email addresses to register for Google Classroom. That email address on your screen, jumpstart@ck12.org. If you want to make extra sure that we've got both email addresses in our records, just shoot us an email to Jumpstart. You are going to have an opportunity at the end of this program to fill out a form when you request your certification where you're going to tell us these your email addresses. So everything's going to get reconciled in the end. We're keeping track, but if you want to make extra sure that we've got the correct information, you can email us at jumpstart at ck12.org. Somebody said I didn't get a link for the assignment, but I'm registered. Can I still make the assignment once I join with my personal email address? Absolutely. Get into the Google Classroom. All of our assignments are due July 31st, so you have until the end of the month to complete the assignments. And make sure that you've done the work that you need to for that. A couple of people were asking about videos. We do post the video. It takes us, either by the end of the day or by tomorrow, we'll have the video for the session posted in the Google Classroom and on our YouTube channel, so you're able to view it there as well. Several people asked, and I love this suggestion, is there a video recommendation for introducing the site for students? Is there a student tutorial video? We have a lot of videos that we've been showing you that are more kind of testimonials, and we also have a help desk that has help desk videos, kind of walkthroughs. To my knowledge, we don't have anything that is aimed at students as a getting started video, but as one of the kind of video production people, I've put that at the top of my to-do list. And I think that's a great suggestion for our team to create a video that teachers can show students, parents can show students. So thank you for that suggestion. We will we'll get on that. Students really do need a tutorial video. Again, great feedback. Thank you. Okay, Katie's seeing some more Q&A.
So we have a question about setting up units assignments in advance so that you can kind of set them up and then assign them to students later. That's currently not an option. We are shortly in about an hour, we're doing a demo of our new Flexbooks 2.0. And one of the features that's coming out in that is the ability to set a start date for that assignment. So if you are interested in that, I would join us for that particular session. That information was sent out last week and is also in the Google Class. And we can post that link in the chat window if we go from there. So definitely keep that in mind as you go. And then we are asking again about how do I preview the practice questions as a teacher. You can just go into any assignment or any practice and you can see that and preview it, and that would be the same view that students would see once you're in practice. So that's not a problem at all. And then we had a question about, is there flexibility to modify text in modality assignments? Yes. So you can actually customize our reads, our kind of any section within a textbook. That will be talked about in Getting Started with Flexbooks this afternoon. It will be talked about in Advanced Flexbook Editing. So if you're interested in customizing text, I would definitely go check that out there. Let's see what other questions we had. Can you delete part of reads as an edit? Yes, that's part of that kind of assignment piece or that customization piece. So definitely check that out and join us for one of those sessions. I think we answered this piece. So Google Classroom, let me actually share my screen for a second to show you guys Google Classroom, because I know a lot of you guys are new today. Escape out of here for a second and pull up that so I can share my screen. Let's just walk you through Classroom for a second. So once you've joined Google Classroom, you can go in to that particular option. And if you go into any assignments, so let's say this is the Getting Started with CK12 Adaptive Practice, I'm going to click on that, and it pulls up that page with all of the resources for this particular session. So here you see some kind of introduction information. Here's the link to that resource page. Then you'll see the assignment. So if I open this assignment, there's kind of two parts. One is the form, which I could access directly. I'm going to unsubmit this because I think I was demoing this a minute ago. But once I've done this form and I get my confirmation screen, you can mark this as done. And I know it says there's no attachment. That's not a problem. The marking it as done is for your own records. You don't have to attach anything. You don't have to worry about that piece. It's not, because it's a form, it's not going to auto submit when you attach something. So just go ahead and mark that as done, but don't worry about that as you work your way through. And then there's this question about tracking of assignments and a class setup from year to year, so you don't have to remember all that you've assigned. So that's correct in some regards. So let me show you back here for a second in classes. And if I go into this part, let's go here. I can see all of the content that I've assigned in the past right here. So if I look here, these are the ones I've assigned to this class right now. But if I show more, you can actually see any content that I've assigned to any of my classes. And so I can quickly assign that to a class here. I could set a due date for this new piece. I'm about to assign it. Once I'm within that, I could then kind of expand it and edit this or add a due date. So you have options within that piece to pull assignments you made in the past and reassign them accordingly. So that's currently the workflow in terms of kind of using assignments from previous years for new classes. I would say you'd probably just make a new class for that new year with those new students and then pull any assignments from beforehand. And then we have on your iPad, there's a couple of apps for CK12. There are separate apps for CK12. So we have a practice app, because that practice app allows students to access and use our adaptive practice and quizzes on their phone or iPad or Android tablet. We're device agnostic, so go ahead and use those across platforms. But that is adaptive, so that actually needs access to an internet connection. Our Flexbooks app and then our Sims app, which you would see on a tablet, allow for offline use of those specific resources, and so they are a different app and set up a little bit differently. So if you're just using practice, just download the CK12 one. If you're using Flexbooks offline or Sims offline, then you can download one of those two other apps as well. There is not a separate app to use with the teacher dashboard. If you're trying to kind of manage all your pieces, you would use that on CK12.org. And then how much support is there within the resources for English language learners? So we have some options. If I go into any of our reads here, let's pick a read right here. See one on, actually go into, see if we have a text option within this piece. Some of our lower level ones have kind of that video and practice. So actually let me go to a higher level one that actually has text, or even our elementary resources for science that are text. But any of our text modalities, you could go down to the bottom. We have this really cool feature. We embedded the Google Translate option, and it is not a perfect translation, but you could change your language. So let's say I was in a class where students were speaking Portuguese, and that changes the page and it changes the text. And we've had some kids where they'll have one version of the text on their phone in their primary language and another on their screen in English, so that they can kind of match and say, oh, this is what this is saying, and then they learn English, and then they work their way through that as well. So there are some options to kind of help them with foreign languages. I know that's super helpful for parents as well. I'm going to put this back in English, so my site isn't in Portuguese for the rest of the day, but hopefully that one piece might be useful for English language learners. Also the ability to customize, and I'll just show you this link right here. So I can customize any of this content using this link on the left side, and that might help you adjust your content to address special need populations or English language learner pieces.
Okay, so we are looking at an empty Q&A window at the moment. If there are any last questions, please type them now, or you can always email us at jumpstart@ck12.org if there are any questions that didn't get answered or you need further clarification. We hope we'll see a lot of you here in a little bit for our FlexBooks 2.0 preview, or this afternoon for getting started with FlexBooks. Thanks so much for joining us today.